slavery to the absolute. And I was just thinking about this the other day. Anything less than slavery is gross. It's a very gross idea not to be a slave. Not to think, what will I get as a result? This is like not spiritual at all.
It's a difficult to understand thing, but you have, like, one time I heard Srila Govinda Maharaj talk about this, and it was super helpful to me. Because he described that the soul's has this middle position, tatashta position. And tatashta means you can come under the shelter of the swarupa form, reality, or you can come under the shelter of Maya. But you always have to be under some shelter. And Gurudev said, there's not necessarily even an evil intention. But what happens is conditioning happens in our consciousness. And he said it begins with curiosity. When you start to manipulate energy and you start to realize I can make things happen. And from that, attachment comes. And once you're attached to particular outcomes, then you're caught into patterns. And so many patterns start to develop within you, and that's called samskara. And when you're in those patterns, then you're conditioned. And we all have thought patterns, we have activity patterns, we have all kinds of patterns that we live within, and they form this network that we call ourselves. And it's actually not us. We're not our patterns. We have some identity that's far beyond that. Like so far beyond that. But that word baddha jiva means bound. Baddha means bound. It means like you're imprisoned in this little cocoon of your own patterns of thought and interaction with reality. And as you move forward in spiritual life, you start to notice that you have a pattern. And you can actually start to distinguish that pattern or that thought from you. And it's an amazing thing to start to actually move forward into that and go like, oh my gosh. And not only that, you can leave some of these patterns. Guess what? You don't feel like, oh my God, I wish I had that again. Yeah. You don't feel like that at all. You feel really glad that that's gone. I only want to do that. I'm not going to interact with anything with the idea that it's going to give back to me. With the idea that it's going to be something that, I manipulate for my own thing. And that's what dasa means, this really heavy idea. But that is the cure to all these patterns, because all these patterns that are ultimately screwing us up and causing us so much pain are all caused from that initial alignment with reality, that initial thing where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start to actually, I want this one, and this one also.
Hey, that's mine.
Right. The whole thing just starts from these very simple little things. And now you're built all these patterns, right? Now you've got some neuroses, and you've got all these fears and all this stuff. That's all just building up in this big layer of conditioning called ego, ahankara, right? This whole idea that I'm going to do it, it's for me. So that's the idea of conditioning. And because the soul is somehow stuck in that little bubble of patterns, then sometimes the wording is even said conditioned soul. But that's not actually the soul. The soul is just almost asleep, as Mara said, in this state of being bound in these ways of being, where you're consistently misunderstanding what's happening around you, misperceiving reality, and then misapplying yourself upon reality from a conscious level. So
the very same thing, the very same Sita, the very same tree, the very same floor is Chidabhas. We can only interact with reality with devotion. So I just really like that Ravana example is so good.
I mean, that's ultimately the thing. And so
You're like little Robin is.
We have to move in that direction with every waking moment, and some beam of like real mercy has come where we can call upon that in the moments of our life. We really start